Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The candidates are on stage. The forum will begin in 3 minutes. The forum will begin in 3 minutes.
Hi, Haley. Between me and Jordan Long, we'll get you up.
Tom Steyer This is just about to begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Executive Director of the Maddie Institute, Blake Zante.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to California State University, Fresno for the Gubernatorial Candidate Forum, co-hosted by Western Growers, the California Farm Bureau, the Ag Council of California, the Maddie Institute, and more than 30 other agricultural associations. And I want to start by thanking you, the voter, for being here. Your engagement and willingness to be a part of this dialogue is what makes our democracy work. My name is Blake Zante, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Maddie Institute. We're a nonpartisan public policy institute established in honor of Senator Ken Maddie, who believed in working across the aisle to get things done for the Valley. Our mission is straightforward: prepare the next generation of Valley leaders, increase civic engagement, and bring people together to find common ground. And through our programs, we've done just that, helping train more than 600 future leaders from the Valley. There's no better place for this conversation than the Valley. If we're serious about California's future, we have to be serious about investing in our region. This region produces a quarter of the nation's fruits and nuts, grows more than 350 commodities, helps feed the world, and yet at the same time, many Valley communities face high poverty and higher than average unemployment. So the reality is, we're one of the most productive regions in the world, and yet we're one of the most overlooked by Sacramento. That's not just a challenge, though. This is an opportunity. The issues we face, affordability, water, housing, healthcare, workforce, require leadership, focus, and action from the next governor of California. I want to thank the candidates, Representative Katie Porter, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, Sheriff Chad Bianco, Steve Hilton, Secretary Xavier Becerra, and Mayor Matt Mahan for being here and engaging on the issues that matter most to the Valley. Thank you for being here. And now give them a round of applause. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to our moderators, Kristen Olson-Kate, and former California Assembly Minority Leader and Maddie Institute Board Member, Kristen Olson-Kate, and Fresno County Supervisor and Farmer, Buddy Mendez. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining today's Gubernatorial Forum on Affordability and Rural California right here in the heart of Fresno. Before we begin, we're thrilled to be holding this forum at California State University, Fresno. Many thanks to our gracious hosts. We'd also like to acknowledge the Maddie Institute for help coordinating the event, And we are incredibly grateful to the over 30 farming and agricultural partners whose collaboration and support have made this event possible. Please join me in thanking all of them. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our gubernatorial candidates for being here, and particularly in the closing months of a very long primary campaign. Not all candidates or state elected officials pay as much attention to the Central Valley. Showing up matters because we're just too often overlooked. And so we are very appreciative of each of you for taking the time to be here today. Conversations like this are important as we choose our next governor. Agriculture is foundational to California. It supports jobs, sustains rural communities, feeds the nation and the world. But the challenges are real. Rising costs, water uncertainty, regulatory pressures, and other policy issues are putting strain on family farms, workers, and the communities that depend on them. At the same time, individuals and families across California are feeling squeezed by the high cost of living, from housing and energy to putting food on the table. In fact, just this morning, as we probably all saw, the whole front page, the whole top of a half of the LA Times was all about cost of living challenges in California that people are facing, citing a UC Berkeley study. The focus of today's forum is simple. What can policymakers, particularly our next governor, do to make California more affordable while sustaining the industries, the workers, and the communities that keep it running? With that, I'll turn it over to my co-moderator, Fresno County Supervisor Buddy Mendez, to cover forum structure and start the conversations.
Hey, thank you, Kristen, and thank you for all being here. It's great to see such a strong turnout. Before we begin, there's a quick note for all the candidates to answer questions. We're going to ask that you be specific. Voters want more than generalities. In fact, this is a high propensity group here behind me. So, you know, low propensity voters, your answers won't work here. They want to hear what you would actually do to address affordability and challenges facing the Central Valley. We're all professionals, so let's be candid and have an honest conversation about what is going to take to get things done. In terms of format, each candidate will have a 2-minute for an opening statement. We'll then go through a series of moderated questions with firm timelines, limited to answers to keep things on track. We'll do our best. I think it's 6 minutes, right?
1 minute each.
1 minute each, okay. See, we're still, we've had so many changes on our format that we're still getting this. If candidates directly address or attack by another candidate, we may allow time for a response, but please don't do that. That just shows you don't know the subject matter. Each candidate will also have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Okay, let's jump right in. Today's candidate. And they include, Blake already introduced you, so I'm not going to do it again. So we'll start off where the first question will start off with Javier, and we'll work across that.
And we'll start with opening statements, so each of you get 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then as we dive into the questions, we'll move to the next person to start, and then we'll go down from there.
So, Mr. Becerra, do you want to start?
Kristen, Buddy, thank you very much. To each and every one of you, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. This is what should happen every time there's an election. The Central Valley should be one of the spots where all the candidates congregate to talk to you specifically, not just when it's right before the election. And so let me tell you, as someone who's from the Valley, the northern reaches from Sacramento, who married someone who's from the Central Valley, from Hanford, who was raised in Fresno, and I come here, I was just here this past weekend visiting with family and going to Moderator. You count, and that's why we are here. And before I get crucified, go Bulldogs, so I don't know one forgets. Listen, this is a crisis. This is a break glass moment. When young people today don't believe they can afford to buy a house, when today the very people who pick the crops that feed us can't afford to go to the grocery store and buy what they need? When we don't know if we can afford to let our child stay in a hospital room, it's a crisis. And then when we see that Washington, D.C. is not making it any better, has anyone gone to the gas pump recently, fill up your gas tank? It's an affordability crisis that we must tackle straight on. And let me tell you, when that person takes that governor's office, we do not need someone who needs training wheels. This is not a place for on-the-job training. I have balanced budgets bigger than the budget of the state of California, 4 years in a row. I have had to declare a state of emergency, a national state of emergency. COVID, avian flu, monkeypox. Even in Lahaina, Hawaii, I had to declare a state of emergency to help out our communities. It is time to have real leadership that's not based on inflated promises. It's based on a record. And that's what I present to you, is my record. And that's why I hope I will earn your vote. Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. I represent something different that you've never been able to vote for before. Every one of these people on this stage are very successful in their own right in partisan politics. And I have spent my entire career, 33 years in law enforcement, just making sure that I do everything I can to make your lives better every day. And I'm telling you right now, nothing that any of you have done have contributed to the downfall of California. Nothing that any of you done, despite all of the hard work that you have done, you have not been able to make your lives better in the farming industry, the ag industry in California. Why? Because of all of this. Because of partisan politics. It wasn't farmers that ruined your industry. It wasn't farmers that ruined the water industry. It wasn't farmers that put all the regulations on yourselves. It was all of these people, and it was their policies, and it was partisan policies. And until we decide that we're going to make the choice to be honest about how we got here and who the people are and who the ideological agenda is that put us here, we're never getting out of it. I represent 33 years of service to make your lives better. Conservative leadership in government that has completely changed Riverside County government in a blue county by an obviously red sheriff, to make our budgets better, to finish within budgets, balanced budgets. My budget is $1.3 billion a year. And I finish in the black every year because government isn't supposed to spend more money than we have. That's something completely different than what California government believes, and you all are paying the cost. Because when they can't come up with the money, they come to you to get it. They come to you for their money in their elections, and they come to you during the rest of the time, of the other 4 years when they're in office, to make sure that you give them the money to balance their budgets. I'm going to give your money back to you because you can spend it better than Sacramento government can. So I appreciate your support. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for hosting today. Thank you, Fresno State. It's great to be back at Fresno State. I first came here with my friend David Tungipa. It's so great to see him turn into this incredible champion for this area and for this great college. I started an organization 3 years ago called Golden Together to develop solutions to the problems we face in California. The very first event was here in Fresno. I have spent so much time here getting to know all of you. I see so many friends out here today. As many of you know, because I've said it every time I've been here, my parents are Hungarian. I grew up in England, but they had the upbringing of a communist regime. And in our small town in Hungary, at the south end of what is known as the Great Plain of Hungary, it is a deeply agricultural area. We had a small farm. You were only allowed a small farm because it was communism. But most of my career has been in business. Small business owner will be the designation on the ballot. And I know exactly what you've been going through, and I have to tell you, I think every single Democrat on this stage today should start with an apology for what their party has done to this area and this industry, stealing your water, piling on the regulations, 1,000% increase in the last decade or so, cutting the pay of agricultural workers, on and on. The assault on this industry has to stop, and they should start by apologizing for what they did. As your governor, you won't have a stronger champion for farming and for agriculture than me. On water, on the PAGA lawsuits that are destroying everyone's business, on labor regulations, on energy. We are going to get it done. I know what needs to be done. I've got the plan and the determination to do it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Mahan, Mayor of San Jose. Thrilled to be in Fresno today in the heart of the Central Valley. I grew up in a small town that is not too different from Fresno, a town called Watsonville, which is where home of Driscoll berries, Martinelli's apple ciders, where your strawberries come from. So I know something about what it's like to live and work in a rural community, the challenges our rural communities face. And I'm here today because for far too long, the interests of our ag economy and our rural towns and cities, communities, have been second tier if they've even been on the agenda in Sacramento. And the truth is, most of our policies are not working in practice. We've made it too difficult to expand infrastructure and water supply. We've made it too hard to build housing. We haven't done enough to make our public schools accountable for educating our kids for the future. We have to do better. And as the mayor of a big city, also a nonpartisan office, I'm accountable every day for making people's lives better. I don't get to make excuses and blame another party. I get stopped 100 times in the grocery store, and every day people want to know, what are you doing to make my life better? And I'm proud to say, I'm in my 4th year as mayor. I got reelected with 87% of the vote. I've led San Jose to reduce crime by 20% and become the safest big city in the country, the only big city in the country that has solved 100% of homicides. We've reduced homelessness by 1/3 and led the state without raising taxes. We've removed the regulatory burden and fees and gotten housing under construction more affordably. And my commitment to you is that as governor, I will be present in this community just like I go visit my mom down in Watsonville. And we will work together to deliver the results that you deserve and challenge the status quo when our policies and regulations and programs aren't delivering results. You deserve better from Sacramento, and I'll work with you to make sure we deliver it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Katie Porter. I served 3 terms in Congress from Orange County, a purple area, and I am the proud parent, single mother of 3 teenagers. So what I'm doing to relax is run for governor because it is more relaxing than parenting those 3 teenagers. I want to start by telling you a story that may be all too familiar to some of you. My great-grandfather was a farmer. He built the house that my grandfather and father and I all grew up in. My grandfather was a farmer, my father was a farmer, and I am not. And that is because of what has happened to American agriculture. It's being felt here in California, but it's been felt across the country. Family farmers, smaller farmers are losing day after day, year after year, and it is to the peril of not just our agricultural communities, but to our entire country, to the character of our country, to the national security of our country, to the health of what we eat and consume. We demand a lot of California agriculture. The world and California demands a lot of agriculture, but we don't always respect and prize the innovation, the hard work, the tough decisions, and the risks that agriculture takes on when it delivers food to the world. I have spent my career working on affordability issues. This is not a talking point for me. I'm not only the only candidate on stage in a skirt, I'm the only candidate on stage who cooks dinner and pushes a shopping cart every night. Don't try to say you do. So I have spent my career working on families making ends meet. I got my start studying families in bankruptcy, pushed there by medical expenses or job loss. I ran the state's foreclosure eviction and prevention program, cracking down on predatory lenders and making sure families had a chance to get back on their feet. We don't need politicians telling us that life is unaffordable. We know. We need someone who's going to focus on policies that will bring down costs and let California and its agricultural communities thrive. Thank you so much.
By the way, you don't have to call me Mayor. My name is Antonio. It's great to be here, and I do shop, as you know, at Trader Joe's, at Ralph's, and at Costco. In fact, I did a big social media post about Costco and tariffs. First of all, let me thank all of you for caring enough about this town, this state, your farms, your families to be here. Elections matter, and I think we all know that. Let me acknowledge my friend, Congressmember Costa, who 28 years ago, came to me when I had a water bond and said to me, I don't like your water bond. There's not enough in your water bond for farming. And I said, well, show me what I could do to make it better. And we made it better. Thank you for that. And let me just say something about Kenny Matty. I served with him. I loved that guy, and I loved him precisely because he was a guy who understood screaming at each other and calling each other names doesn't work. At the end of the day, we have to work together. What you and I have in common, we ran for office, nonpartisan. I had to work with Democrat and Republican, and I did so as Speaker. If you remember, when I was Speaker of the Assembly, balanced two budgets with a surplus with Pete Wilson when we had 42 votes and Gray Davis when we had 48. The largest expansion of health care since Medi-Cal, Healthy Families, I authored it. Millions of kids got health care. The biggest effort to clean up the air, and a lot of you know it, the Carl Moyer Act. I know you know it because it's helped to reduce pollution, but also provided grants so that you could retrofit your engines. The next governor's going to have to be somebody that gets things done. Somebody who works across the aisle and can work with everybody and stop the screaming. This part of the state is important, and I tend to represent it. That's why I came here last time 55 times, and this time more than 24. Thank you very much.
Trader Joe's. Okay, we're going to start with the first question. It'll be Chad Bianco will be first, and we'll go across and end up over here. So voters consistently indicate the cost of living is one of the most important issues. If elected government, what are two main things you would do to address it?
It's very easy. All you have to do is ask any one of you. Cost of living is predominantly because of regulations and taxes. End of story. So how do you fix it? You remove the regulations and you reduce or eliminate the taxes. It's that simple. It's called problem solving. It's not having committees. It's not hiring somebody else to write a paper. It's not coming up with a policy. It's what is the problem, now go out and fix it. That's been my life for 33 years. All of the regulations, I'm telling you, every single one of the regulations, and you all know them, you have them in your head. Every single one of them that are bothering you, I'm signing them away on day 1 through 10. That's how long it's going to take to get rid of the regulations in California. But none of those regulations are laws. None of those regulations were voted on by you or the people you put there in Sacramento. There are regulatory boards that have been meant to control you and put you out of business. And I am giving you your farms back when you make me your governor. Regulations are being removed from this industry. We will abide by the same thing that the rest of the country abides by.
Thank you. I'll stay seated for the questions. I think that it is very clear what we need to get done. We do need to get rid of all the things that have made this the most expensive state in the country to live, to work, to run a business. Number one, we will cut vehicle registration. In most other states, vehicle registration under $100 a year. Here, $600, $700, $800. Many of you may be paying over $1,000. On day one, we can stop that. Just the flat registration fee, $71 per vehicle per year. Number two, we will open up California oil and gas production so we can start to bring the cost of gas and diesel down for all of you and for everyone in California. My target, $3 gas. Number three, we will act on the regulatory burden that every single one of you faces. We can cut that so that we can cut costs so we don't have what we have now, the most expensive grocery bills in the country. thanks to all the actions of this Democrat regime over 16 years of one-party rule.
Thank you. Two main things. Mayor Mann.
So number one is comprehensive CEQA reform. And if the legislature won't do it, I'll take it to the ballot. We've poked a lot of holes in it, but it still leaves open far too much litigation, too much process, hundreds of pages of paperwork, years to comply. We're not serving ourselves by having overly onerous compliance rules that force people to study everything and then you get sued anyway because you missed one thing. We need to completely overhaul CEQA, and particularly for infrastructure like water conveyance, for the housing that we need exemptions and strict limits on who can sue and how long it can be in judicial review. So comprehensive reform of CEQA is critically important. The second is reforming the way we approach energy. We need an all-of-the-above structure. It is crazy to push all the refineries out of state just to import fuel from farther away that therefore is dirtier, costs more, and we lost all the jobs in the meantime. The way to get there is through innovation and investing in smarter energy transition over time, not punish sources of energy we rely on today.
You always learn something at these forums, as many of them as we've done. You have a damn expensive car compared to me if your registration is $1,000. The 2010 Sienna, I don't pay that much on registration. Two things I would do. Look, we need to focus on things that directly help families bring down costs, not attenuated strategies. The biggest piece of most families' budgets is housing, whether that's rent, whether that's mortgage. So building housing faster, building more housing, changing how we permit housing, and innovating in construction and design and materials. If we can drive down the cost of housing, we can help Californians afford to stay here. That's both young people, but people who are at the end of their working career afford to retire here. There's no bigger piece of your budget than housing. You've got to take aim at the biggest cost. The second strategy is one that I stole from Steve. I don't want to share a haircut with him, but I will take a good idea anywhere I can get it. That is eliminating California's state income. You just got it. That is eliminating California's state income taxes for people earning less than $100,000. That's money right back in your pocket today. It was a Republican idea, but I'll take good ideas anywhere I can find them.
You know, I was the first candidate who started to talk about this issue of affordability. Why? I grew up in a home where my mother struggled to make ends meet. I've lived in a neighborhood for a long time where everyone struggled to make ends meet. But now in this state, all of us are struggling to make ends meet. So let's talk about gas. I was the first one to talk about we overregulate refineries. That's not a Republican idea. It's true. It's a Democratic idea as well. If we continue to overregulate refineries, one more goes down, gas prices are going to $8.75 a gallon. I've got a plan that says instead of overregulating these refineries, what we have to do is we have to focus on, we got too many regulations. CARB, California Air Resources Board, has made it impossible for them to exist. We should clean up these refineries, but we have in Sacramento have not allowed them to be clean because we haven't allowed carbon recapture and the like.
Thank you.
So if we want to act fast, the only way to do that is to declare a state of emergency. That's what I would do. By declaring a state of emergency, I can bypass some of the legislature. I can move quickly. What would I do? Housing? There are more than 40,000 units today that could be built because they're shovel ready, but they're bogged down. State of emergency. Get those moving so we have the housing, so you look at it and you say, aha, there will be affordable housing in the future. Secondly, front load health care. We spend way too much money in the emergency room. We should let people have access to their doctor, pediatrician, family doc early so it costs us much less. Start to front load health care so we don't spend it when it's so expensive in the emergency room in the hospitals. Third, let's make sure that we recognize that energy is costing us a whole lot, our property insurance is costing us a whole lot. Let's find out why. I'm going to freeze your property insurance costs. I'm going to freeze your utility rates until we can look behind the curtain to figure out why they're charging us so much and making so much profit at our expense.
Thank you. a few of you touched on housing, so in the interest of time, I think we'll jump to energy. And a couple of you touched on energy, but maybe not as comprehensively. So let's talk about that, because another key factor impacting the cost of living and a significant cost input for both businesses and farmers is energy costs. We're reading about it every day all over the state, right? Which have nearly doubled in the last decade alone. So tell us, what do you think is driving our state's high energy costs, and what can we do about it? And we'll start with you, Mr. Hilton.
Thank you very much. And Katie, I do appreciate that you stole my tax plan for working people. I didn't steal your haircut, but eagle-eyed observers might see, if you look at my new profile pic on my social media, today, on this very special day, I did steal somebody's haircut thanks to the wonders of AI. You can take a look at that after the debate. Very quickly, on energy, I talked about my plan to get to $3 gas by opening up California oil and gas production. Electricity, the highest in the nation other than Hawaii. Why? Because of Democrat climate dogma. We have a fleet of gas-fired power stations in California today that are running at 10 to 15% capacity because they are only being used as backup for unreliable, more expensive wind and solar. That is insane when we have abundant gas reserves in California. We will use California natural gas to generate electricity to deliver my promise to cut your electric bills in half.
Thank you. Mr. Mahan.
Thanks for the question. I'll give you three very quickly. Number one, I'm the only candidate who's proposed a suspension of the gas tax and then backfilling the infrastructure dollars in the general fund. We've seen spending in the state go up 75% over the last 6 years. We can find the money for infrastructure without burdening working people, rural communities with the most regressive tax that we have. Number two, I talked about refineries. We have over-regulated and taken this rigid ideological view that we're just going to push all the refineries out of state without really having a smart transition plan, which gets to my third point. We need to reform our environmental review laws, speed up permitting, and reduce the friction around building a modern energy system, expanding the grid, being able to access new solar and wind resources. The way to have a cleaner energy system is to invest in the innovation and infrastructure that enables us to get there over a multi-decade period so it doesn't break the backs of working people in the process. Thank you.
Energy demand in California is predicted to go up by 50% in the next 5 years. So we need to keep all of the energy sources that we have online, and we have to be adding capacity aggressively. This is to power everything from electric vehicles to data centers to new innovations in agriculture to more air conditioning because of climate change. So this means we need to speed up permitting for green energy. I agree with that. We have a partner at the federal level who's pulled back on a lot of the infrastructure projects that were in progress here in California. We need to invest in battery storage and distributed energy. So we need to be putting solar panels everywhere that we can. We need to be making sure that people can store energy so we can have that energy consistency. Definitely speeding up green energy permitting would be a big part of my plan. You're never going to have cheap, abundant energy when you're largely dependent on a scarce commodity like a fossil fuel. So we have to continue to have fossil fuels. We're going to continue to be important here, but we have to invest in that cheaper, more sustainable green energy.
We've said some of it. We've got to stop the CARB. Any CARB regulation that drives up costs, we'll put a moratorium on it. One. Two, I don't believe in a gas tax because we need the gas tax to do our infrastructure, but I do believe in a gas rebate over $5.50 a gallon. Third, we've got to address the fact that we don't build anymore. If you read the book Abundance, this state isn't building in the way that it used to. So we, as an example, we've said let's go all electric by 2035. It sounds like a great idea, but we built 167,000 charging stations in 10 years. In the last 6, we've built 167,000 charging in the last 6 years. We need 2 million in the next 10 years, and if we built it, we don't have a grid. So we have to build the grid, we have to streamline permitting, we have to do everything we can on all of the above solution with regard to energy security.
Thank you. Mr. Becerra.
So you've heard much of it. all of the above is the most direct way that we can try to resolve this issue with energy. Every source of energy we must explore. And as we try to transition towards cleaner energy, we can't leave people behind. So let's make it a balanced transition. So we are making use of the energy sources that we have as we move into those that are cleaner and more efficient. But at the same time, let's recognize something. We can't make the situation worse for ourselves. We are spending billions of dollars right now, every day, to be in a foreign war in Iran. That is costing you and I money directly right now. Every time you go to the gas pump, you see the price of having begun that unlawful war in Iran. We need to concentrate on doing things right here in America. And one of the things we need to do is get our energy right. That means concentrating on making use of everything we have and not beginning foolish wars abroad that may start to cost us not just money, but lives.
Thank you.
Well, he wasn't out a minute.
He was over. He was over.
Oh, he was over?
Yeah. Energy is very, very easy. I don't want to suspend the gas tax. We're going to eliminate the gas tax. Why suspend it? That means it's coming back. We're over that. We're over being taxed and we're over being feed. We are going to be energy independent in California. We are going to be oil independent in California. We will never buy another gallon from another state or from another country, and we will be energy independent in this state. We will never buy gas from another state, and electric will be nuclear. You want to talk about clean? There is nothing more clean than nuclear. Everyone is going to nuclear. It's cheaper, it's better for the environment, it's more affordable, and it's more powerful. And yet we don't have it. Why? Because of the green scam of billions of your taxpayer dollars that are going to be wasted where people are getting rich like no belief, but you still can't turn your power on. You still can't turn your refrigeration units on. We are absolutely going crazy. I love being the first Republican in this race because it made all of the rest of the Democrats have to act like Republicans, like they wanted to help you with the issues that we have.
Okay, we're going to do a quick deal, and it's going to be show of hands. And the question is, do we need to rethink how we balance our state's climate goals and mandates with people's needs?
You think?
For some relief for energy prices. You want to raise two then?
Yes, 2, 3, every limb.
All right, I know every candidate hates this, but only a show of hands. Do we need to do so? Yes. We don't need to do so? No nos. All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and we have one final question on affordability, food prices. Food and grocery prices have risen dramatically in recent years. A recent PPIC study found that nearly 30% of Californians are cutting on food costs in order to save money. And for households that earn under $40,000, it's 50% of Californians. What 2 policies will you seek to implement in your first year as governor to lower food prices? And we will start with.
That starts with me. I mean, look, I think the 2 biggest drivers I'd focus on are, number one, the one that we just talked about, which is energy, major input to food costs, as you all know. And I think we've covered that pretty comprehensively. The other, though, is just the general regulatory burden that we put on ag communities. And it's just layer after layer. It's not one regulation. It's the fact that over the last 20 years, we have increased the cost of complying with regulations for farms by 13 times. Not 13%, 13x what it took to comply just 20 years ago. That's monitoring, reporting, getting a permit for every little thing you want to do. It is overwhelming. As governor, the most powerful tool you have is the power of appointment. We appoint the 3,000 people who run every state agency. I will get them out from behind their desks in Sacramento, down here on the ground level, to reform our regulatory environment to make it work for you.
Thank you. Ms. Porter.
Yeah, look, we have to be honest. The regulatory environment in California is choking off our agricultural community. It's choking off our production and the ability, you're paying the price in the grocery store. We see it. Somebody tried to put a $9 box of cereal in the cart recently and heard a big, that's my daughter, and heard a big fat, not a stranger, that's my daughter, and heard a big fat no, we're not buying $9 boxes of cereal. Look, California farmers have innovated and innovated. They have stretched, they have used technology, they have done what we have asked them to do, but we have to listen back to them. Nobody should be at risk of dying or getting hurt on a farm, and people should get paid what they're owed. Those are the touchstones for employment regulation. You should get paid what you're promised. You should be safe on the job. But we don't need thousands and thousands of regulations to get that done. We need to focus on holding bad actors accountable and freeing our hardworking good businesses to innovate and deliver cheaper groceries. So I agree, we've gone too far on regulations. We need to look hard at them.
According to when I was with the Farm Bureau, I think it was in Bakersfield somewhere, in the last 10 years, we've gone from $160 an acre regulatory cost to $1,600. I mean, that's not sustainable, everybody. So there actually is agreement that things are broken in Sacramento. It's not just about partisanship. It's about people that never worked on a farm, that think they get food from a box or a can and really don't know what goes into all of that. And so what do we need to do? We need to bring farmers in the regulatory environment. According to the PPIC, blue states actually regulate about the same number of industries as red states. But if a red state does 8 things, a blue state does 25 things, California does 300. That's the PPIC study, everybody. So it's not just farming, it's all across the board. We got to end that. We just do.
I think we all agree. There are some regulations that are just getting in the way. And we should quickly sit down in that, when I declare that state of emergency, I'm giving you that chance to sit down and say, these are the regs that are getting in the way. And we start to remove those so you can move faster. But I think there's something else we have. We have to give you predictability on water. Because if you're going to grow, you need to know what you can forecast. You need to know how much you need to spend. And if you don't know how much water you're going to get, you could be making a big investment in your farm, in your production, and not be able to produce all the way through. So we need to give you some predictability when it comes to your business. And that we can do. We may not know how much rain is going to fall in a particular year, but we can still give you predictability based on the amount of water we currently know we have. We can work far better with you so you can have some levers that you're holding to help make sure you do this the right way.
It's very, very simple. The regulations get absolutely removed that are destroying your business, that are destroying your ability to actually make affordable crops and get those affordable crops to the store. That's why we don't have cheap groceries. And so gas is number one. Oil independent in this state, bringing the price of gas to the lowest in the country. We're better than Texas. We can have the lowest price gas in the country. They're at $2.35 right now. We can be lower. Water is obvious. 12 years ago, you all voted for billions of dollars to build new reservoirs, and instead we've taken 4 away. You can't just believe what's on this stage. You have to listen to what they say in groups that don't think like you, because everything that they're saying here contradicts what they say in those groups, with more cap and trade, with more regulation, with more everything else. We have to reduce the price of gas that you're paying, we have to reduce the cost of electricity that you're paying, and we have to give you the ability to grow more food.
So many of the points have been made correctly, but the honest truth is we're never going to reduce the cost of groceries or anything else until we abandon the climate dogma that has got us to this point. The Democratic Party has to abandon it clearly, decisively. No more. We're going to get rid of this insane net zero 2045 target that is driving the cost of energy up, that is driving the cost of gas, that is stopping affordable housing being built. We've got to make a big decision here. Are we going to continue down the same path that's got us to this point, or are we going to take things in a new direction? And frankly, the people that got us to this point cannot possibly get it done because they are captured by the interests that drive costs up. The climate lobby, the unions, the trial lawyers that are driving all these things like PAGA lawsuits that are driving every business crazy. We have to have a complete break from the past, or none of these promises from these Democrats will ever be delivered.
That was my fault. I'm looking at Mr. Mahan to answer next, and he already answered, so I apologize for the interruption. Now we're going to talk about issues related to agriculture. This is the San Joaquin Valley, after all, right? The American breadbasket, the part of the country that feeds the entire world. As we all know, agriculture is absolutely critical to California's economy and the Central Valley, generating billions in economic output annually and supporting more than 1 million jobs throughout the state. Yet our state has lost 25,000 farms in the last 25 years alone. Additionally, we see other states attract and expand food processing facilities, including dairies. Not only has the number of dairy farms decreased, but processing facilities are going to places like Texas due to regulatory environments here. And candidly, people in state government often seem more focused on other sectors and other priorities. Is it important, in your mind, to protect and strengthen our existing agricultural economy from further erosion or not? And if it is, how would you propose doing so?
Yeah. You heard some of this from me in my opening statement. It might surprise some of you to know I said I'm not a farmer today, but I thought I would be. I was a 9-year 4-H'er. I was in the FFA. I was a creed speaker. I believe in the future of agriculture with a faith born not of words but of deeds. For those of you who know, you know. I wore that horrible navy blue corduroy jacket, which is an abomination that we do to people who are in FFA. But look, we're not going to have more agriculture if we don't make it cost effective in pencil. People are not leaving agriculture because they don't believe in its value and they don't find joy in their work. They're using it because it's not sustainable, because they're losing their farms. They're not leaving them, they're losing them financially. So we have to take aim at regulations that don't make sense and that drive up costs. Let's use the farm worker overtime regulation as an example. The farm worker overtime regulation has resulted in farm workers earning less, not more. So that's a regulation that, however well-intended it may or may not have been, does not work. We have to go regulation by regulation and look at those.
It's about $2,500 that they lose on average as a matter of fact, and you're right. And look, you know, we can make this partisan, but let me be clear, if you want to make it partisan, you're never going to get elected. Because at the end of the day, it is a blue state. But let me tell you this, there are a lot of us who figured out this thing is broken. It's broken up in Sacramento. I've had the courage to take them on gas, on overregulation, on housing, across the board. And when I was mayor, we could all talk. When I was mayor, in the middle of a recession, I cut the gross receipts tax. Why? Because we were drowning in regulation. I went from one department, from 12 departments to do anything, to one department, so that we could accelerate the building. And we had 25% of all the cranes in the United States of America were in my town. So rather than get partisan, let's come together and try to figure this out. I believe the next governor has got to be somebody that understands it's broken in Sacramento, and I got a record of fixing it.
Thank you. Mr. Becerra.
Never going to get elected.
When it comes to ag, I think there are two things that are perhaps most important in the minds of most Californians. Those who don't live in ag country, but understand how important it is to have good quality food. Safety and production. If we can do everything possible to make sure we are providing the safety that consumers want to see, that we want to see for workers and for these operations, and if we can provide for the most efficient operation in the world, so we keep ag here in California, then let's start to shave away all the other regs that have nothing to do with safety and production. That's how you start to get to the point where consumers can afford to buy the food that's at the grocery store. Because I don't think there's anyone who goes to shop who wants to know that they have to fear putting the food that's at that grocery store in the mouths of their children. I don't think there's anyone who wants to know that we're shortchanging our growers and our farm workers to try to make the food affordable at our grocery store. Safety and production, we can do that working together.
Ag in California is a world producer of ag and, of course, the United States, but it's drastically going down every single year. It has to stop. And we are not going to make it stop by choosing the same people, the same ideological agenda, and the same mission forward if you want a different direction. We have to put people in place that are actually going to save your industry and realize how we're going to make it better. We not only have to increase the size of our farms by allowing you more water, allowing you all of the water that you need, the power that you need, the gas that you need, the cheap food, the labor, all of those things. But we have to make sure that we are increasing. We're taking the taxes away so your kids can farm your farms when you die. Everything being put in place is to make sure that farming doesn't exist in the future in California, and we have to make a drastic change to make sure we change course in the direction in that, and this is the year it has to happen.
David Tongipa's in the house. Good to see you, man. How you doing? Didn't you just see there revealed the arrogance of one-party rule? It's a blue state. We're going to be in power forever. You're just stuck with this. How outrageous. What contempt for the voters of this state. We have had enough. You've had enough. I've seen it all over the state. This state demands change, and this is the year we're going to get it, specifically on this great industry being crushed by these Democrat ideologues. Of course I want to save this industry. This is the greatest agricultural area in the world. When I'm governor, it will have everything it needs to thrive and flourish. We are going to make that happen. Top of the list, water. We are going to increase deliveries within the current infrastructure we have by deleting the biological assessments of recent years and increasing the water flow down here. We're going to dredge the Delta. We are going to finish those projects that should have been done years ago. Sites Reservoir. Finish the Folsom South Canal. Get the water you need to grow the healthy food that we need for our state and our nation.
So look, I reject this sort of binary partisan oversimplification, red team, blue team, one side's right, one side's wrong. This is exactly what's wrong with American politics today. I grew up in a small farming town. All that mattered was the neighborhood safe? Is the school good? Can I get a job? Those are the things that matter. And we're not all the same. Each of us is an individual, and you should judge us as individuals based on our values, our ideas, most importantly, our track record. As mayor of a big city, yes, a blue city, but as a very moderate, pragmatic, problem-solving mayor, I know what it takes in practice to take on the interests that dominate the state. I've gone up against trial lawyers. I've said no to public sector unions. I was the first Democrat leading a big city to come out and support a Prop 36. When we weren't building housing, I led the fight to reduce fees and cut permitting timelines. So I know what it looks like to be balanced and solve problems, and we should really focus on what we're going to do in government to make your lives better.
What? You didn't say anything.
All right, well, we like the spiritedness. Let's keep going, and so we'll move into a spirited topic.
Okay, let's talk water, since we're talking water. Despite some success in voter-approved bonds and executive orders, the state still seems to be stuck in neutral or developing more water storage or capturing the water during the wet years and carrying it through the dry years. This negative impact on agriculture, municipal users, and environmental wetlands alike. How important is it for the state to develop more water storage? Are there other policies that are practical and economical to proceed?
Yes. By the way, I think in 98 or 99, when we did that water bond, it was supposed to be 2 dams, never got built. I also support, interestingly enough, sites and temperance. And I've said that last time around and this time around. I want to add to what you just said, Mayor. Look, there are a number of us who've taken our own party on. I took them on as mayor, and I took them on as speaker. People didn't like the fact that I was working with Pete Wilson. And I said, hold it. They got elected too. I had a relationship with Republicans and Democrats, and we got things done. We've lost our way since then. And I am running against the machine. I'm challenging my own party again and again and again on water, on ag, on crime, across the board. So on water, we need an all-of-the-above solution. That means we need recycling, we need recharge, we need dams, we need underground aquifers, we need recycling, we need all of the above, because there's 1 million people without water, and that's unacceptable.
So first, there's no way you get anything done unless we learn to work together, period. And you learn that when you're a kid, when you're at home, and you got to share your toys with your siblings. I mean, it's simple. Politics gets in the way, but let me tell you what gets in the way most in politics. It's not the parties, it's the money. If you follow the money, you'll see where the arguments go to extremes. It's where the money goes. But let's talk about what we do on water. We have to do a far better job of recapturing and recharging. We have to do a far better job of storage, of conveyance. And we have to do a far better job of conservation and distribution. We have enough water in California. It's making the best use of it. And the state has an obligation to be the big investor to make it work for everyone. And so I will tell you, as governor, when you're at the table sitting with me, I will listen to what you think we need to do in every one of those areas so we get this done together. Because water is more precious than gold. Let's make it work.
Water, if you want to control a population, you have to control the food. If you want to control the food, you got to control the water. And I think we realize that that's where we are. Rationing your water in a state that has more water than any other state in the country is asinine. And he mentioned it. It's complete government mismanagement of our water. You need 100% of the water to operate your farms. The only way you're going to get that is if we build massive dams. Massive dams are not, and many of them, they are not going to be built in this state because of regulation. The environmental regulation that makes weeds and bugs more important than your life, my kids' lives, that's what's destroying California. And whether you want to admit it or not, it's an ideological Democrat agenda that if they wanted fixed, they have complete control.
Yes.
They could have fixed it yesterday. They don't want to. They're just in this room right now telling you that they do, so you'll vote for them. We need a massive change. We need many reservoirs in this water, and they will get built immediately with me as your governor.
All right. I love the way the people who've been in power without restraint for 16 years keep telling us it's not partisan. Sorry, it's an election. It is partisan. It's a choice. Do we want to go the same direction, or do we want to go in a new direction? On water, obviously, we need to go in a new direction. That direction is abundance instead of this forced scarcity driven by their climate dogma. So let's go through the specifics again. Number one, we can increase deliveries within the current infrastructure without building anything extra. By deleting the biological assessments of the State Water Resources Control Board, I will appoint people to do that. Number two, there is a simpler project that we can get done completing the Folsom South Canal that will immediately bring huge amounts of water from the Tuolumne and the American River into the Fall Bay so that it can get into the canals bringing water south without building new dams, without doing any of that. These are practical things we can get done for low cost and get it done quickly. As your governor, that's what I would do.
So look, when it comes to water, we've got 19th century laws, 20th century infrastructure, 21st century problems. And the only way we're going to ensure a bright future for agriculture in this state is to invest in infrastructure and innovation. And you're already embracing the innovation. I've been reading a lot about farms using precision irrigation, getting smarter about how to use a precious resource. But we need to get more of it to you and make it easier. Delta Tunnel Project is not something I'm for today. It's something I wrote an op-ed 8 years ago.
It's a terrible idea.
The conveyance system today is outdated, hasn't been maintained, and we lose 100 million plus gallons a day of water from aging infrastructure that isn't conveying it. Steve, let me finish my point, please.
Let him finish, Steve.
Let him finish, he's going to get an extra minute. All right.
I'll take the extra time.
We won't hear anything from
number
the extra minute
three,
any more than we've heard in this minute.
Very funny. Number three, we absolutely need to expand storage, and it is a crime that has taken this long to move forward these reservoir projects, and it is a regulatory problem, and I will fix it as governor. We will streamline these projects.
For too long, our water conversation in California has been about pitting different Californians against each other. It's about north versus south. It's about agriculture versus urban. It's about even within different agricultural communities in different parts of the state. Those who rely on groundwater, those who rely on surface water being pitted against each other. Water is a scarce resource, and we need to be smart about how we use it, and we need to recognize that we have already asked agriculture to dramatically reduce their water and become more efficient. Today, about 50% of all crops are grown using drip or micro irrigation. You don't have to read about it, Matt. You can go out with any one of these gentlemen and see it like I have. It's really, really important that we recognize they've done what we've asked them to do. They have innovated. We need to also ask our urban and suburban communities to innovate. In Irvine, we are the home of water recycling. Our population has tripled in Irvine, and our water usage has gone down in half. That's a story that agriculture can relate to. We have so much extra water in Irvine now, we're pumping it back up here for agricultural use. That's how we get this done.
Your daughter's your biggest fan.
Xavier Becerra. What do you know about the Delta, how it works, and the connection between surface water and groundwater supply?
Like any basin, that's where you have the seawater meeting the freshwater. And what you have to do is have that balance so that what you are able to do is make use of that fresh water that's coming down and make the best use of it for our state, for our people, for our industries, and at the same time protect those basins so that we don't see the incursion of that salt water into the inner areas of that Bay Area, because that begins to erode the economies and the environments. Talk to the fishermen who are trying to survive these days with the lack of rain and the lack of opportunity with water. Their industry is suffering tremendously. And so the basin area and what we do with water is crucial. And that's why we have to have everyone at the table sitting down so we make those balanced decisions about how we make the best use of all that water that we're getting flowing down from our mountains before it goes into the ocean, and making sure we're preserving what we know as the uniqueness of California.
Yeah, you can't get any simpler, so that was a great definition of what that is and what the issue is. But I think you have to ask yourselves, at what point is that more important than the rest of us? At what point do we flush every single bit of water that we have into the Delta to keep the salt from coming in, and then now we have no water for the rest of the year? There has to be this, the things that have been going on, the laws that have been going on, everything that's happened over the last 100 years, and now we have today problems, but we're stuck in the past and don't want to change it. We absolutely must save the water that we are having. We have no more dams than we had when we had half of the population, but yet we're using the same amount of water or a little bit less. And let me remind you all, I don't have to remind you, you're doing great with all of this things that they're making you do with irrigation, drip, and everything else that you had to pay for. I just want to give you more water. We're just going to save the water and make sure that you get all that you need to grow our food.
So the artificial restriction of surface water is causing so many problems, not least because of the excessive pumping. You've now got subsidence under some of the water infrastructure. So the canals are being broken and leaking, and so the whole thing is being undermined. The answer to that is not to restrict further, it is to increase the deliveries of surface water, which we can do in the ways that I've outlined. In terms of the Delta, I'm sorry, but the Delta conveyance thing is a completely ridiculous project. It's the next high-speed rail. There's a very very simple alternative, thank you very much, which is to dredge the delta so that we get faster flows and more flow out, then you don't get the saltwater incursion. In terms of the infrastructure, we've mentioned sites a couple of times. I want to complete the Folsom South Canal. We get huge amounts of water from those watersheds I mentioned, Tuolumne and American River, into our irrigation systems. And of course, one we haven't mentioned, raising Shasta Dam. All of these things we can do to increase the supplies of surface water, then we don't need the restrictions of Sigma in terms of groundwater.
Look, I think it's a false choice. I think the tunnel project wouldn't be like high-speed rail if we reform CEQA, which is exactly what I'm talking about. We need a comprehensive overhaul so it doesn't take decades and cost billions more than it should. We need to be able to build infrastructure in this state again. If we're going to grow, if our economy is going to thrive, we need to make it much easier, faster, and cheaper to do big things. And we absolutely need to invest in conveyance at scale. We do not have enough capacity without actually being able to move more water to where it needs to go in the state. That means upgrading the conveyance system. It means improving existing infrastructure so we have less leakage. It means raising our dams and increasing our capacity to store in wet years. And it means embracing technology. It's all of the above. And along the coast, it means investing in water reuse and desalination so that we diversify our water supply. It's not either or, but we're going to need infrastructure and innovation to make sure that we don't have to trade off our environmental goals with the health of our ag economy.
Okay, hang on, Katie. I'm going to repeat the question.
Thank you.
Okay, what do you know about how the delta works and the connection between surface water and groundwater supply?
Yep. So when we use surface water over time, we see subsidence. That's a problem, and it's real. There are places in this state that are losing a foot a year to subsidence. There are also a lot of places where they've been pumping surface water with no problems at all. So it varies depending on the topography and the geography and the use that we have. We're going to continue to rely on a mix of surface water, stormwater, groundwater. It's going to be a mix of those things. If you've asked one farmer his opinion on water, you have gotten one farmer's opinion on water. Let me tell you, this depends on where you live in the state and how you irrigate your crops. So this is as much as something that we have to work out between different agricultural users as it is about saying this is about the environment versus agriculture. It's also about different agricultural users who depend on either groundwater or surface water. I do agree we need more infrastructure and we need it quickly. We can't spend 20 years talking about the Delta Tunnel and not doing the 100 shovel-ready water projects that could have improved this situation already.
Okay, thank you.
You know, a lot of what's been said by Democrats and Republicans, I agree with. But I do agree with you that we do need conveyance, everybody, and almost all the experts will tell you that we do. But I said it before, we need an all-of-the-above solution here. I mean, if you don't want that conveyance, then cities and counties need to recycle a lot more. We don't do near enough, like LA County as an example, doesn't do near as much as Orange County, which, you know, a purple state, a place where they work together, something novel. So the next governor is going to have to do all of the above. And we're going to have to streamline so that we build it, build the infrastructure. That's what we need to do as Democrats and Republicans working together. And what I meant way back when was that, you know, look, at the end of the day, what's broken is that it's one-party rule. What we need to fix is both parties working together. And that doesn't happen enough. And a couple of us have been talking about that for a long time.
Thank you all. So related, while we're on the topic of water, and one of you mentioned it, the state's Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is likely going to require the fallowing of nearly 900,000 acres of farmland by 2040. How should local groundwater sustainability agencies implement SGMA in a way that best protects California's food supply while also protecting Central Valley's economy, its farm workers, and its farmers? And we'll start with Sheriff Bianco.
Well, you elect me as your governor so we can do away with it. That's what you do. California is destroying our agriculture industry with boards, commissions that don't consist of farmers, with rules and regulations that do everything they can to put you out of business, with water issues that has nothing to do with saving water, nothing to do with getting more water, nothing to do with how we can get you more water. It's just how we can cut your water off and how we can really, let's don't build the reservoirs, so we force you to drill it from the or to pump it from the aquifers, and now we're going to punish you from pumping it from the aquifers. There is absolutely nothing in this state that makes sense, because people that made these rules had no intention of making your lives, the agricultural lives, easier or better, or sustaining this industry for California. We have to bring adult decisions back to the table where we make decisions that just fix problems instead of pushing them down the road.
So the original idea behind Sigma is correct, because of subsidence driven by groundwater pumping, but the answer is to increase supplies of surface water. Then you don't need to deplete the resources, and you can do groundwater recharge. So all the things we've talked about in terms of increasing deliveries is actually the answer on Sigma. And actually the other thing, when you look at Sigma, it's just insanely complicated. The ridiculous bureaucracy, 500 plus of these agencies on top of the water districts and the other regulatory boards, it's all insane. It all needs to be cut back and shut down wherever possible. One other thing on water that's very important, the use of technology now. Systems that can really do very accurate long-term rain forecasting and prediction. That means that we can manage the reservoir stocks better and the flows in and out of them. The ALICE system, for example. There's so many things that we can do to get back to what we need, which is abundant water for our ag industry in the whole state.
Well, that's one we agree on. I mean, look, Sigma's not some big conspiracy. I think it's overly complicated and bureaucratic, but we do need to protect groundwater resources and not continue to have subsidence. We've seen that there are long-term risks to what we've been doing, and the only answer is alternative expansions of supply and improvements in conveyance. As I mentioned, we lose over 80 billion gallons a year just to leakage from aging infrastructure. We need to upgrade that infrastructure. When we have rainy years, we need to capture a lot more of that water. We need to be incentivizing and paying farmers to recharge groundwater. So expanding supply, being able to move that supply around, recharging our groundwater is the way to do it, and we should reduce the regulatory burden around achieving those goals. So it's not either or, but to just say we're going to get rid of Sigma doesn't make sense. We have a process of trying to protect groundwater and recharge it for a reason. We shouldn't ignore that.
Water is a collective resource. If we have no rules and no system, we will not be able to have it as a shared collective resource. Sigma was passed for a good reason, but the implementation of it has been deeply, deeply problematic. And so I do think the complicated layer, how we're tasking different water districts with doing things, the lack of cooperation, the lack of an overall state strategy is a problem. There is a direct relationship. If you're going to do less with groundwater, then you do have to do more with surface water. And that means more infrastructure in surface water. That means thinking about allowing more surface water to flow if you're going to do less with groundwater. There is no magic wand to create more water. If it were, we would all have been using it decades ago. But we can ask everyone across California to bear some of the cost and burden of doing this water work. We can't keep putting it just at the foot of the valley and the growers. This is something that affects everybody in the state uses water, and everyone needs to be part of delivering those water solutions. So I support Sigma, but the process of getting it done has been deeply problematic.
Yeah, I also support Sigma. I've been in the San Joaquin numerous times over the years, and I know it's broken. I support it, but it's too complicated. We need farmers involved in some of these rules. I think we need to address the fact that you said, and I think it's well said, we all got to share in this. We all eat the fruits and vegetables in the food that you eat, just like I support conveyance, because at some point there are people living in the South that got to drink water. But at the end of the day, we also have to eat food. So we have to work together. And we need more surface water. Yeah, but we can't allow that kind of subsidence to occur because that's just a downward projection to failure.
I'm not sure how some folks who want to get rid of our rules that help us manage groundwater believe that we can do the right thing without some guidance. I agree that maybe there's too much regulation within SGMA and we have to trim it back. But let's be honest. We need groundwater. There are some communities that rely solely on groundwater. And we need to do a far better job of how we manage that groundwater. And so here's what you're going to get from me if I'm governor. You're going to get infrastructure. You're going to get commitments on how we're going to make sure we sustain that groundwater. You're going to get commitments on how we distribute that water. You're going to get commitments on how we're going to make sure communities throughout the state are doing their share, whether it's conservation or whether it's conveyance. We have to make sure that we work this together because everyone at the end of the day, whether you're the consumer of that groundwater or you're the one that benefits from the fruits and vegetables and all the food that's grown as a result of groundwater, we need to do this together. And to get rid of the rules is crazy.
Okay, we're talking about affordability for families and consumers, but many of the same forces impact costs for consumers also impact our farmers, farm workers, and businesses. Some of this is driven by our state's extensive regulatory structure. A recent study found that the average annual cost of state regulations per acre is $1,600, an increase of nearly 1,300% since 2006. California is the leading producer of dozens of agricultural commodities, including the #1 producer of milk, butter, ice cream, almonds, grapes, and generally other fruits and vegetables. Many believe that we should be incentivizing family farms and businesses to stay. Here's the question. Do you think there are effective checks and balances on the power of regulators? Or has the balance of power shifted too far away from the elected officials and towards the agencies and executive branch?
Mr. Hilton.
So the most effective check on the power of agencies and regulators you've ever seen in this state will be me when I get there as governor and cut this insane, bloated, nanny state bureaucracy down to size. It is destroying opportunity in California in every single area, and especially in the area that we're discussing today, our great ag industry. So of course we need to rein them in. The only thing I would disagree with Matt over when he said earlier that he was going to get the bureaucrats out from behind their desks and into the Central Valley, I'd say, yeah, I want to get them out from behind their desks and into the private sector to do productive work instead of endlessly clogging up the private sector with their ridiculous rules and regulations and nonsense. You will not see a more determined enemy of the bureaucracy than me when I'm governor, and it's going to make a massive difference to everybody in every industry almost overnight.
Well, look, I do think it's gotten dramatically out of balance, and we have a few problems. One is the legislature too often thinks that its job is just to pass more rules, more laws every year. You got 1,000 bills written, the governor signs 85 to 90% of them. I'm willing to veto far more of those and say if they are increasing cost, increasing process for the sake of it, no, rethink it. I did talk about taking a different approach to the regulatory environment. Now, I think many of these agencies have proliferated. We need a single front door for farmers where you can go to one place for regulatory compliance and have a dedicated navigator who actually makes sure that the system's working for you, and we're not just giving you form after form and making you go to different departments. I do think these departments and agencies can be smaller, and the key is to focus on outcomes. What's actually happening in the real world? Are we driving up food prices? Are we making it harder for you to survive? And if so, we need to rethink our regulations and send that back to the legislature as a reform package.
Thank you.
Our legislature and our agencies have turned into high-volume, low-margin businesses. They think their job is more things, not better outcomes. So I agree, we need to be focusing on whether these laws and rules are producing the desired outcome. And we need to put a pause button on changing and adding regulations until we figured out what is and is not actually working. So we just did PAGA reform. I guess the British pronunciation is
PAGA.
Okay, it's PAGA in America. We just did PAGA reform here in this country, in the state. We need to make sure that it's actually working, and if it's not, we need to go back. There are too many regulations that we are passing, and when it doesn't work to solve the problem, the solution is yet another law and yet another regulation. I drive a 2010 Sienna minivan. My license plate is OVRSITE, oversight. That is why I'm running for governor, to make sure that when things come to my desk, the first question is going to be, why did we need this? Did you make sure the prior regulation was working before you added another one?
I think there's a lot of agreement here. I used to be speaker. We used to have oversight. We would have oversight. You'd pass a bill. You would have an agency, implement and regulate what the bill said. And then you would oversee it and say, is it working? We don't do that anymore. And we need to do that again. We've given too much room for CARB, Fish and Game, Water Board, the Coastal Commission, the PUC. Across the board, we've given too much opportunity for them to do mischief. And there's no oversight of whether or not it's working, whether or not it's affordable. So I believe the next governor is going to have to put a group of stakeholders together to look at all of our regulations, not just farming. But when I say stakeholders, you can't put academe and legislators and not people that actually work on those farms. And it's true for every one of those industries, whether it's oil and gas or whatever. We need to have people who know what they're doing and making those decisions.
So I began by telling you that in the first days of my administration, I would declare a state of emergency because of this crisis that we're in. That gives you an opportunity to sit with me so we figure out where we go on these issues that are most important. And I know one of those subjects will be these regulations, but not just the regulations. Who actually is trying to administer and enforce them? Are they people who actually know your business? Are they people who have had experience in doing this work? Are they people who understand ag and the depths of the crisis that you're in, trying to figure out your water, how you make it through? And so I can promise you this, that what we will do is not only tackle the regulations, but we'll make sure that we have people in these departments, in these agencies, in these commissions and boards who actually have experience, who actually have lived through this, what you're doing, so that when we make decisions at the government level, you believe that the policy makes sense for you.
I think how California goes, so goes the rest of the country. And I think that I'll just say you're welcome and say that in February of last year, when I came out and I've been screaming from the rooftops about making our state better by eliminating all the regulation, I even got the people that put the regulations in place to say that there's too many regulations and we need to remove regulations. This is not rocket science. He's already told you how easy it's going to be, a state of emergency. There is going to be a state of emergency, and it's going to be to eliminate all of this regulation, not to have a committee, not to come together and say, how can we make the regulations better? It's remove the regulations that are only California specific, that are destroying your industry in California, that no other place in the country has to abide by. That is why California is failing. Regulations are easy to remove because they were not put in place by lawmakers. We can remove them with strokes of pens. That's what I will do as your governor.
Okay, now we're going to move into the final part. Thank you all of our candidates for their thoughtfulness and Also, the fact that, you know, 2 chicken hearts didn't bother coming here, so we're glad you guys came. And Gail. We'll now move into our closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to offer their final thoughts. We will begin with the opposite order, reverse order of the opening statement. My colleague will make sure we're on track here.
Okay. Mayor Villaraigosa, you're up.
Antonio.
Antonio.
Look, again, thank you for coming. And look, we had a little back and forth on the partisanship, but it's broken, everybody. What I've said, and by the way, I don't change my rap. I say this stuff to SEIU. I've said it, I'm taking on the billionaire tax. Why? Because they're just all gonna leave, everybody. I've said on the 13% that I'm gonna challenge it. We're not gonna make permanent the 13% because we've got to say we're going to live in a spending plan. We've got to put a spending plan that lives within our means. I've taken on all of the above approach to energy security, to housing, across the board. We need people that want to work together. I did that as mayor. When I became mayor, LA was the most violent big city in America. When I was done, it was the safest big city along with New York. 48% drop in violent crime. 1 out of 3 schools were failing when I started out. I took on the teachers union, not because I worked for them. I wasn't against them, but I saw that 1 out of 3 schools were failing. We had by the time I left, it was a 60% increase in the graduation rate. 25% of all the cranes in the United States of America were in my town when I was mayor, built more infrastructure than anybody in the country. I'm a doer, but I'm not a hater. I tell people I'm not with the people falling off the flat earth on that side, or the people stuck with their heads in the clouds looking for pie in the sky on this side. There's a middle. And if you want to elect a leader, elect someone. It's easy to take on your enemies. It's a lot harder to take on your friends. And I've taken on my friends again and again and again. And I'll tell you, I've had an impact on this debate. Not today, but over the last few months, because I've been taking all of these positions that we now all agree on, which is great. But at the end of the day, we need a leader, and a leader that brings us together and stops the screaming and fix what's broken in this state. Be honored to have your support.
One of the things that every candidate on this stage and the 2 who didn't show up and were invited has in common is that they fund their campaign from corporate California. Heck, they fund their campaign from corporations that aren't even in California. I'm the only candidate in this race who refuses corporate donations from corporate PACs or corporations. Businesses put their money into paying their employees and growing their business, not buying outcomes that hurt regular Californians in Sacramento. I'm proud to be running a grassroots-funded campaign from over 75,000 people who have chipped in because they know we need a governor who's going to go against the grain and fight the status quo, not in a reckless way or a name-calling ideological way, but in a smart, policy-driven way. I'm running for governor for one reason only. I am passionate about the future of California. We cannot look backwards, and we can't point the finger at each other. We need to be squarely focused on eliminating things that don't work and doing more of the things that do. We've heard some of those ideas today, both about things that don't work and things that do. But we're not going to get out of this mess by continuing to allow big corporations and powerful special interests to steer the state's policy. That's what got us to a place where California is unaffordable. There's a lot of Democrats in this race, and Republicans too, in the other direction, who just want to talk about Donald Trump. That's all they've got to say. A lot of our challenges here, from groundwater to the cost of housing, to the fact that our UCs and CSUs are no longer tuition-free, are problems that existed long before Donald Trump arrived on the political stage. We need someone who's going to take responsibility for steering California forward, and I'd be honored to have your support in doing that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again for organizing this forum. Thank you to our moderators, our hosts here. This has been a great discussion. I really appreciate the opportunity to answer your tough questions and hope to earn your support in this race. because there's a lot at stake in this race for governor. California is not heading in the right direction, and it's for some of the issues we talked about today. The proof point for me that it's not working is that in the last 6 years, we have increased spending in Sacramento by 75%. We're spending $150 billion more today than we were just 6 years ago, and nothing's gotten 75% better. I don't have to tell you that. Most expensive housing, second most expensive energy, within that the most expensive gas costs, underperforming public schools that are leaving far too many of our kids behind, over 40% of the country's unsheltered homelessness rate. And the failure of our policies, of our overregulation, have disproportionately fallen on our rural communities. Places like Fresno, places like Watsonville, where I grew up. We are not doing enough in government to make your life better. In fact, in many cases, we're making it harder. And my commitment to you is to be a problem solver, not to fight old partisan battles and blame the other side or give you easy answers and pretend that we have a magic wand, but to actually dig in with you and be focused on results, to make the machinery of government, which isn't going to just disappear overnight, but is there as a tool, to make it a tool for making your life better. More accountability in our schools, less barriers to building our infrastructure, more affordable housing, bringing down energy costs, making it easier to grow our ag economy, good high-paying jobs. These are things that are doable if we hold ourselves accountable and take on the interests that have captured Sacramento and always ask for another tax and another regulation. There's a better way. I've been doing that as mayor of a big city, and I'd like to do that on your behalf as your next governor. Thank you.
Matt just talked about machinery. It reminded me of something. A while back, maybe a couple of years ago, I was out in the fields for the pistachio harvest. That machinery was amazing to see. The shaking and the collecting, 3 different bits of machinery working together. And I was talking to the guys out there, and one thing they said was, you know what they're trying to do now? They're trying to turn this all electric. EVs. For farm equipment. I said, how is that going to work? We're out here in the middle of the field. Where are we going to plug it in? What are we going to do? And what that tells us is such an important story about what's been going wrong in California for all these years. Because there with that story of trying to have electric vehicles in this insane manner, it's the triumph of ideology over practicality, forcing some intellectual, academic, ideological agenda onto real life for real people running real businesses and making their life a misery in the process. Now, I've run businesses most of my life, including in the food business, including restaurants. You've got to be practical. And that's what you'll get from me as your governor. A problem-solving, practical business mindset. I've never run for office before. I'm an outsider. I'm going to be going in there to shake up the system. And the last thing I'll say, just a few weeks ago, I was down in Tulare for the World Ag Expo. What that showed me was just the magnificence of this industry and all the businesses and jobs that depend upon it. The pride of our state, the pride of our nation. And when I'm governor, this great industry, all your great communities will be supported like you've never seen before. Thank you.
So the difference in who you have to elect in this election are the people that are telling you they're going to do something and then the person that's just done it for 33 years. I don't have to make you promises that I can't deliver because I just go out and fix things and do things. It's the nature of my job. For 33 years, I've had to help our farming community in the Inland Empire in Riverside County. As the last 8 as sheriff, I have dedicated tons of effort into making sure that the theft problem and losing their crops or losing their machinery or losing all of those things were taken away from them. That burden was taken away because they tell me of the burden placed on them by the state and by government. All we have to do is fix a problem. I can tell you right now, if we brought out barbecue or something, we could probably fix the world's problems right here in this room. We all have the answers. It's just whether or not you're going to put the person in place that's actually going to fix it. I answer to no one other than you, and I never have. My integrity is intact, always will be intact, and it will be intact when I leave. Because my only purpose of going into this position is to make Californians' lives better. I've done an amazing job in this campaign so far anyway. I've convinced Democrats that we need to remove regulations and taxes. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, the twilight zone that we're going through in an election year when we just want problems fixed. I've turned people into less regulatory problem solvers. And the reality is, we just need to elect a person. They're not making you promises that they haven't delivered in the past, that they're incapable of delivering in the past, or just giving you a nice, bright little, articulate it really well to make you say, oh, I think he knows what he's talking about. You have to put somebody in place that is sick and tired of having to fight government to make our lives better. And with me as your governor, California is going to be a place where California government makes to make your lives easier and better instead of you all working hard to make California government bigger.
So it is great to be here and see that so many of you came out, because you're probably happier that we came to be with you, because how often is it that no one comes into this part of the state and no one pays attention to what happens in this part of the state? I know that because, as I said, I was born in the valley, in the upper reaches of the valley in Sacramento. My dad picked crops all along the 99 when he was working as a young man. My wife, as I mentioned, is still from the Fresno area. I know this place because this is my family. And what I can tell you is this. This family in the Central Valley wants nothing different from what everyone else wants in our state. You want to have a chance to make a living here. You want your kids to want to come back here after they grow up. And so we didn't get a chance to talk about it too much, but let me tell you what I want to do as governor for the valley. I want you to have the assets that guarantee that your kids want to come back here. We deserve to have in the valley the universities, the top-notch universities that make it so that your kids can go to college and get educated right in your backyard. We want to have those hospitals and those great clinics so you don't have to travel to other states to get the care you need for that cancer that you got diagnosed with. The valley deserves to have those assets just the way the rest of the state has them. And so here's my promise to you. You're going to have a valley kid sitting at that governor's desk. And he was going to invite you to be part of that because I've always been part of the valley. And when you have a seat at the table, you get to help make those decisions. But the governor's office is not a place for on-the-job training. Get someone who's actually been in a crisis, had to handle crisis, had to manage budgets larger than the budgets of the state of California. Get someone who's actually declared national states of emergency and had to deploy personnel and resources. That's what makes you a good governor. I hope I can count on your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to each of our candidates for being here today and sharing your perspectives. Can we give them another round of applause? We did, while you guys were hugging, we did spare you from a couple questions, including another raise your hand question, so you can say thank you. But we are especially proud to have hosted this forum right here in the Central Valley, helping ensure that the voices, challenges, and opportunities of this region are front and center in this gubernatorial dialogue. Today's discussion made one thing clear. Affordability and the future of rural California are deeply connected. The decisions made by our next governor, by one of you perhaps, will have real impacts on family farms, on farm workers, on small businesses and communities across the state. Remember the Central Valley when you're in that governor's chair. We also want to thank California State University Fresno, Go Bulldogs, the Maddie Institute, and our many agricultural partners for helping make today possible.
Yeah, real quick, I want to encourage everyone here and those watching online to stay engaged, stay informed, and mostly don't be a low propensity voter.
Amen.
Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you.